So then we are back with more understanding on the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. Then per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find in a layer of understanding of the spring feast, autumn feast, and returning of the holy cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. Also the governments transitioning themselves and then participating with the given plan from heaven. This means computerized direct trade. These words, they mean what they say and they say what they mean. Direct trade via computer. This means there is no socialism in it, no republicanism or then socialism. There is absolutely none of these descriptions. As long as then countries are in a system, they can do trade as they please, and then the people can do whatsoever they want in the system. So it's absolutely 100% liberty given. So then let's evaluate what goes on in China. China is the great computerized trade system of the world, and then we find ourselves then transitioning our government also, and then the understanding of this system becoming available in a very short time. The problem is this government, United States, is not preparing itself for the new system, but rather the United States is trying to take over the system. There is a problem. We are no longer during the time of the 1,000 years of deceit from 1009 to 2009, when governments could either take by force or by persuasion or by economic trade. There is a pre-selected plan and must be completed. So then, rather than wasting our time then trying to take over this system, we should then obviously retrieve for rebuilding and then participating with it later, because there is no socialism in it. Try to understand this principle. When the computerized trade system is then implemented and then diversified amongst the nations, this means each country can tailor-made its own system. So prior of the coming of the system, they must tailor-made these subsystem of theirs, whatsoever it is, and then making it adaptable. So nations, liking it or not, either they start working in their subsystems or they must adopt the system of China. There is absolutely no option. So then let's try to understand what this implicates. People from around the world, everywhere, as long as they have a computer, a decent desktop computer with a nice hard drive, can be either solid or standard, and they understand how to use the computer, such as eBay, PayPal, or Amazon, or credit card. Understandably then would be the system of China and the Bank of China and the many derivatives from the Bank of China as means of exchange via a financial system. Then any person anywhere can do trade with China, or then the BRICS, because understandably those countries of the BRICS are going to be benefited first. So then, if a country leans towards a military type of government, they can do so, as long as they organize their subsystem. If a country wants to become Republican, can do so. If a country can be only Democratic, can do so. If a country wants to be conservative, can do so. If a country wants to be liberal, can do so. Because nomenclatures no longer play a part in it. What does play is then when the system becomes available, then you have a computer, you have an email, you have internet provider, you have a broadband, you have then the downloading of the system into your computer, you have a financial institution, and you are in the system. What you want is be wise and invest on products that would be the most sold around the world, so then you can get your share at the end of the month. Then you spend your investments in what you gain from in whatever you want. From then on is the subsystem where you are found at. If the subsystem is junky, for instance, United States, we have a junky system, then there is not much what can be done. Taken by force doesn't work, because as long as there is a signal from space where then any person can be contacted or linked with the system of China, they can invest themselves. Because the overseas banking system does not depend on our own. It is independent. So then in every angle you evaluate the situation, the Creator is absolutely amazing, because He has found a system that can't be tempered. So this country, for instance, they were hiding for so long, the Ozarks, those reptiles of our government. They have come up with FEMA camps and dividing up our nation in 10 sectors, and then establishing then obviously a police state. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because the system does not regard any kind of a subsystem in whatever you want to name it. So what goes on then amongst the nations at the moment is they are trying to portray the Chinese system as evil. But they are not evil. They are doing the work. The situation is those people then promoting China as socialist, it's because governments, they understand their time of being lazy then is coming to an end. If a subsystem then does not adapt to its proper understanding of trade, then they go bankrupt. They no longer exist. And then absolutely instantly the government becomes in the hands of the freighters. Because freighters are linked with a volume of packages. Thus then the trade of the end. So if you hear people speaking bad of those nations trying to do direct trade with China, it's because governments are afraid. They understand their leadership is coming to an end. Any person with any kind of a funding can do trade in the system, and any person can become either a 6-digit person, 12 digits, 24 digits investor. It has absolutely no limit. And the only way of tracking the amount of funding these people are investing overseas via computer is then by what they purchase. And by doing so, they have to line up their economies with the freighters of their countries. So then they can come up with a description, price, taxation. Otherwise, there is no way of investigating what a person is earning because the system is confidential. So let's make sure we take away any kind of a label of the Chinese system, because you can do whatever you want once you are in the system. So then, if you understand the subsystems are faulty and the time of 36 months is very short, ask yourself, what should you be doing? We understand the system is confidential. Governments can't sneak what's in the system. They can do trade themselves, but they can't investigate somebody else's. So the only way out of it is then obviously coming up with a system of taxation and tracking, taxation or freighting, combination of them both for tax purposes. They can name whatever they want. They can name socialism or then, serious type of work or any kind of a name you want. It's going to depend upon the subsystem. So let's make sure we understand the plan. The starting of the system providing thousands of jobs around the world, where then people can come out of their civilized slavery salary and becoming then a decent person, is then via the BRICS. So any nation then working in their subsystem should instantly invest their money in the BRICS system. Forget the rest of the world. So then, when this system then is protected from Europe and the West for a time, then we will understand later when this system becomes available worldwide. But you can name whatever you want. Some nations of the Pacific, for instance, some of the islands, when a person lives over there for a time, some people, they have the perception of, oh, these people, they live like socialists. There is an elder of the island and it's always going through the elder. You may perceive as socialism. But when those islanders, they are acquainted with a computer and they have an email, they have a PayPal, for instance, or then later would become then the Chinese system in the Bank of China, and they understand the responsibilities, then they can name whatever they want. What truly they want, though, is a route of delivery of parcels. And these, they must come up on their own. You know, people coming together and then establishing a port, establishing then a depot over there where they can store the packages, distribution of packages, and then exploring their natural resources and doing trade via the system. So then the system was given, and people can, either with anger or being calm, or combining them both, or not combining any of it. The system is absolutely neutral. If you have a computer, you understand how to do the system, you understand then the financial system, and you do trade in the system, then you can receive your parcel. But let's make sure we don't get mesmerized by governments trying to mesmerize the system as then being evil or whatsoever they think they are. So then let's make sure we understand what's coming, because then when the West then retrieves for rebuilding, then we understand what it means. Because this time America is not going to take over. Because the system is already given. Our system, United States, is a failed system. The system coming, it is a divine system provided more than 2,500 years ago. And it won't fail. So let's make sure we understand, because thus far we are bankrupting ourselves further, and the more we do, later the worse it gets. So then, as it was explained before, these areas of linking up the BRICS is extremely important. And then the position of Mr. Zuma, Mr. Putin, and Mr. Key, those are then the main players of the initiation of the system. However, if each of them deviate from these, they're going to get themselves in trouble. So they must understand they are then involved with the development of a system for the benefit of the rest. So let's then evaluate, since we truly understand the instructions must remain intact, absolutely intact. Then we evaluate whatsoever is contrary and then its consequences. If Africa refuses to do as then the raw materials provided, there are consequences. Other countries, they're going to try to steal their resources. We understand there are countries very involved in the African politics. There are many, in quote, tentacles from many countries sucking up their resources. If the Northern Kingdom refuses, they never will become the later staters more than the first. Then the government must be replaced. Must be replaced because the condition of the later is because of China. And China was a system already given. What does it come from? It is the Asian market, and it started with Shaliak Shaul. While Shaliak Shaul was transitioning the people, also they were receiving understandings of the trade of the time. Later then became known when Yohanan was in the first holy city, and later the cities then guided the kingdoms. Thus they became prosperous. Thus Asian market. So then the condition of the Northern Kingdom depends of the relationship with China and becoming their managers of paperwork only. You find nations trying to do dealings with China. Those nations related with the Balian system or then with the Babylonian background would go through the Northern Kingdom. Most of the projects are, as long as they are then backed up by production, by then raw materials and transportation, as long as those are covered, obviously it goes through. Because it stands on the line of the normal production line. Obviously goes through. But then this gives the Northern Kingdom and also the East, China, protection granted then for those people wanting direct trade with China. This means then Cuba must be involved in becoming then a post or trading post, but not only protecting then the trade of Panama, then the post over there would be most importantly then as patrol posting. In a natural sense, they would become obviously along with the trading post. Not as important as then Panama because of its strategic point, but becoming also a trading post. So then these, when they are linked up together, we understand the balance of power. Not only these, but then the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Mr. Key, must join up the team. So then you have the South Pacific trading post, visiting with the patrol posting of Cuba, and visiting with DRC, Congo, and then also visiting with Mr. Putin. And lastly, obviously, China. So it is absolutely imperative at some point a visit with Mr. Xi, Mr. Putin, Mr. Zuma, then the President of DRC, the President of Cuba, and the Prime Minister of New Zealand. These individuals must come together and find out a neutral point where then patrols are established. So as far as the African continent, most importantly tabernacling in northern Sudan, must be always intact. Then the second most important place in Africa, besides then the leadership of Mr. Zuma as then the representative of the Southern Kingdom because of the BRICS, comes then DRC. And Che Guevara was there quite some time ago. So the establishment of these understanding as trading posts and then patrol posts must be reestablished, so then the balance of power is then given. As far as the involvement of United Kingdom with New Zealand must be then severed. We understand United Kingdom unfortunately is bankrupt. Lady Elizabeth gave herself then a huge pay increase and people are not very excited with it. It's very expensive maintaining a monarchy. And the monarchy is not producing as many deals as they should have to justify their existence. We are dealing with direct trade. We are no longer dealing with, this pompous, jargon of, being respectful and, because it's monarchy, it's a piece of junk. When you compare the monarchy and what should be providing its citizens as far as trade is concerned, it's a piece of junk. It's only jargon. So these must be said in the very face of Lady Elizabeth so she can wake up. There is a new trade system coming and monarchy, doesn't mean much. So then, as far as the realm of New Zealand, since they are part of United Kingdom, then Mr. Key must make decisions. Because when he establishes himself as the trading post of the Pacific or the South Pacific, then his status as then the great power of the South Pacific because of direct trade, he must think of the subsystem of United Kingdom. Because United Kingdom may want a share of his investments. But he doesn't share with only the northern side of the system. He has to share with the entire realm system. So at some point, because of this imbalance, he has to make decisions. But the balance of power comes from Mr. Xi, Mr. Putin, Mr. Zuma. Then comes Mr. Kabila. Then Mr. Castro. And Mr. Key. When these gentlemen, they come together and they establish then a reference point starting with the BRICS and the protection of these countries wanting direct trade with China and BRICS, then you understand what it means. You understand the combination of the military of China and the Soviet Union. You understand the protection given by those countries wanting direct trade with the BRICS system. And then you understand then the patrol posts, New Zealand and also Cuba. Thus leveling the power in the world. Then you have the Babylonian system, always desperate for control, with a system that already failed, versus the dragon system. But the dragon is not a bad name, it's simply precision. We were taught wrong as far as the dragon. The dragon is not bad. We were taught bad because devil was in the midst of it. So they mixed devil, dragon, serpent, that whole situation, they made a salad out of it. Dragon simply means precision. After tabernacling in the earth, where it is absolutely exempt, it must remain intact. The second person is Nahashatan, facet of dragon. He's absolutely precise every time. You can conclude whatsoever you want from the system, as long as you understand. Then you have a computerized trade where then if people are doing what they should not be doing, the computer catches them because it's self-regulated, self-adjusted. So then whatsoever was then learned in the past does not use during this time. There is a system provided